Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the City Council special meeting this Monday evening,
Recording in
February
progress.
2nd. City Clerk, please call the roll.
Certainly, Mayor Lorraine. Councilmember Diaz-Nash.
Here.
Councilmember Sverko-Goditsky.
Here.
Deputy Mayor Fernandez.
Here.
Mayor Lorraine.
Here.
Councilmember Newsom.
Here.
Thank you, and welcome. We're excited to be here in person with options for those who choose not to be in person to still participate virtually. Thank you for your cooperation and for helping us maintain an efficient and accessible meeting environment. There are several ways to participate. For those attending in person, you can complete a yellow request to speak slip and hand it to the city clerk. If you're participating remotely, you may use the raise your hand feature in Zoom, and you will be called on at the appropriate time. If you're calling in via phone, press star 9 to raise your hand, and when called upon, please press star 6 to unmute. These options for public comment will remain available until I close public comment periods for each specific item. And for members of the public that might be watching us on YouTube, please note, if you wish to provide live public comment during the meeting, we do not currently have that function available in YouTube. You must join the meeting through the Zoom webinar. Please use the access information listed in our agenda on our website. We're actually going to change up the order of our agenda for the study session, for the special meeting tonight. We're going to begin with closed session items. We have two closed session items, a conference with labor negotiators and a conference with labor negotiators. But before we go to closed session, there is an opportunity to give public comment on those items such as they are. And City Clerk, do you have any requests to speak?
Mayor Lorraine, we have not received any requests to speak on either closed session item in our virtual environment or in person.
Very good. Well, then I will close public comment for the closed session items. We will adjourn temporarily to go to closed session. And then once we have finished with those items, we will return to the dais for the next item in the special meeting. So please pardon us. Thank you.
No. Oh, you know what I missed from that?
Good evening, everyone. Thank you. We have returned from our closed session items and are now back in council chambers for the remainder of our special meeting. We have another item before us, Draft 2026 City of San Mateo Legislative Platform Direction, and a presenter, Zachary Rada, Senior Management Analyst. Good evening, Zachary, and welcome.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening. My name is Zach Rada, Senior Management Analyst, and we are joined tonight by Dane Hutchings, CEO and founder of California Public Policy Group. And Dane will be presenting on the city's legislative policy and on the draft legislative platform. I'll pass it over to Dane.
Good morning.
It's been a day. My apologies. Can you all hear me?
Yes, although it's a little light.
Keep
Little
speaking.
Okay, let's try again. How about now?
It does sound better. Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much. And good evening, Mayor and Council. Dane Hutchings with the California Public Policy Group. We'll just go ahead. I know we've got a bit of a tightened schedule, so we will run through here and looking forward to the conversation today. So next slide, please. So today we wanted to talk about really at a higher level the purpose of the overall legislative platform and policy. We'll touch on some of the platform statements that we worked on, the process on how we got here, but certainly want to try and get through the presentation a little quicker, thus allowing for more dialogue, because a key part of finalizing the platform is hearing from you all, getting your input and direction on how we can make further modifications. But before we jump into the actual platform, wanted to just give you a quick highlight of the state of play, and then we'll jump right into it. Next slide. So starting out, we do have some budget uncertainty at the state level. It depends on who you are paying attention to. The governor is downplaying the budget deficit because we had, about $42 billion additional receipts coming over projections from last year's budget. The Legislative Analyst's Office still believes we have about a $16 billion structural deficit. We'll get a clearer picture of the budget when we get to the May revise, when we'll have more updated tax receipts. But all told, we are looking much better than we thought we were going to look last year. Mostly that's because of the buoyed because of the stock market and a lot of those big drivers of the market being based right here in both San Mateo County and in Silicon Valley. To date, there's been about 225 measures that have been introduced in the second year of the two-year session. Many are touching on areas of direct interest to the city. We're likely to see about another 1,000 or so measures introduced in the next 18 days. February 20th being the bill introduction deadline. Next slide. Oh, next slide, please. So yes, February 20th is the bill introduction deadline. I should also note that this, the numbers I gave you earlier do not account for some of the two-year bills. So bills that were that maybe didn't make it in through on year one are still, some of them, depending on if they're over in the Senate or the Assembly at this point in time, are still potentially active. And so we'll see a lot more volume of bills moving into the summer. But we have spring recess in March 25th through April 6th. Then the governor releases his May revise, typically no later than May 15th. And then the legislature must pass the budget by June 15th, and the governor signs it by June 30th. And so, we sort of shift from policy to budget, but things are really moving at a dual track here in quite a rapid pace. You can skip 2 slides. So talking about the platform development process, and then I will note on that last slide, just want to note that the platform in its entirety is included in your meeting materials. And so wanted to call your attention out to that. But from a process perspective, So over the last 6 months or so, we have met with virtually every one of your department directors, discussing a whole host of different issues about what some of the from the staff perspective, what are the big major issues on how the city operates and functions, what bills that have passed already that have an impact, and what things would make life a little easier for the city and for staff. We also went through and combed through your housing element, your strategic plan, the city's mission and values, and then the general plan of 2040, pulling all of those items together and how we crafted these initial statements. We also propose these statements through your legislative subcommittee in the fall and receive additional feedback as well. And so, we really tried to focus on aligning these priorities with department heads, with known position statements from, similar entities in the region that have the same sort of mutual interest. And then also we added other statements based on what we believe to be emerging trends that the city may want to engage on more formally. Next slide. So from a process perspective, the platform works in two ways. The policy statements are your values, where you see where the things that are most important. They also allow for us to effectively screen when we see these thousands of bills that get introduced into the legislature. We don't need to look after every single one of them. We can, based on your platform, we really can go through and screen and determine which bills really matter the most, and maybe which ones, may not have the direct applicability to San Mateo as they would for another jurisdiction. On the process side, this now enables your legislative team to engage quickly and to have consistent engagement throughout the process. And so, the way that the process would work is that if a legislative proposal clearly aligns with the adopted platform, city manager may authorize with the mayor, or in their absence, the vice mayor, to sign an advocacy letter without additional process. And one thing I like to remind our councils is that as much as we would appreciate the state legislature having a deliberative process such as the Brown Act, and having everything posted 72 hours in advance, and things moving a little bit more deliberately and thoughtful, that's just simply not how it works at the state level, where you can have a bill, you can have an idea, and it can be on the governor's desk in 72 hours. I mean, and if it's a budget, if they jam it in the budget, it can even be less than that. So things move very, very fast in the legislature, and so this allows us to be very nimble. It also allows us to have continued sustained engagement. So I've listed out here a couple of examples of what we do when we position on a piece of legislation, throughout the process, resubmitting letters, testifying in policy committees, attending meetings, engaging with your delegation and folks outside of your delegation, and other stakeholders to try and craft and get policies amended that are workable for the city. Next slide. And so, we have also within the policy, sort of this extenuating circumstances provision in the policy that essentially says that, if you're hitting all of these caveats, that the city manager may be able to quickly act and authorize us to engage on the city's behalf. So an example, I'd say a topical example, was last year in the last 4 days of the legislative session, there was a legislative attempt to try and eliminate all real estate transfer and document transfer taxes for all jurisdictions throughout the state. This would have been a considerable impact to the city's general fund budget. What we ended up seeing in print was something that only applied to the city of Los Angeles, but what folks didn't see was the unofficial drafts circulating and would have applied statewide. And so, it's one of those where, break glass if needed, we jump in and engage because we just simply don't have the time to go through that process. And had myself and other folks that really put a lot of pressure on the legislature to not try to advance that piece of legislation, could have really been something that was jammed in at the end of the year that would have had a really detrimental impact to San Mateo and other jurisdictions across the state. So now we're going to be moving on into, just giving you a bit of an example, sort of a sample of what you're seeing in your larger package of platform statements. And so touching on fire and emergency medical services, we touch on things from fire training to fleet maintenance to EV mandate safety, and recruitment and retention. And so a couple of draft platform statements just to give you a sense of what the larger platform encompasses. One that I found really particularly interesting in talking with the San Mateo Consolidated Fire Authority was, support legislation that studies and mitigates the health and safety impacts of electric vehicle battery combustion. Your team out there really knows their stuff about this issue and have some really, really bright thinkers. And, I think we're going to be driving a lot of awareness on that issue in the next year, in the next couple of years. Next slide. So on community development and housing, touching things, that are aligning with some of the state's goals, preserving and protecting housing options, expanding affordable home ownership, want to have housing production incentives. We want to have some local phasing authority for housing in mixed use developments. And then, of course, trying to promote public participation, ensuring that the community is engaged on, these critical issues in and around housing. Support comprehensive housing legislation that addresses all contributing factors to California's housing crisis. That's one, for example, looking at it from different perspectives and not simply targeting, local development, because we've had about 175 bills pass that touch on local planning, and production's still down. So, we want to look at this more holistically. Next slide, please. Transportation and public works. I had a very long conversation with your transportation and planning staff. I did not realize the extent of grade crossings in the city. It's pretty remarkable. And so talking about quiet zones, of course, public safety with Vision Zero, bike and ped infrastructure funding, regional public transportation collaboration. And so, one of the big issues we saw last year was that it wasn't quite 96 hours in session, but it was about the last month of session. There was an attempt, primarily dictated by the California High-Speed Rail Authority, but carried by two authors in the legislature, to essentially remove all local discretion for local permitting, utility relocation, and dispute resolutions for moving, pretty massive utilities around for high-speed rail. And so certainly want to ensure that we have a partnership with high-speed rail, that we are engaged with them, and that we can communicate with them to do something that's going to be both beneficial for the state's greater good, but also reflecting San Mateo's voice in that conversation. And so that's, for example, why this exact statement was presented. Next slide. Jumping over to Parks and Rec, again, on a high level, promoting youth well-being, increasing childhood resources, encouraging healthy lifestyles, of course, and trying to invest in clean air, water, and parks, history and art, and then scholarships for inclusive programming. Next slide. On governmental transparency and public meetings, again, always wanting to try and focus on increasing the public's trust, expanding civic participation, trying to streamline some remote participation options. We're touching on some of the issues in and around the California Public Records Act, both trying to enhance access to records, but also realizing there are real fiscal constraints, specifically with timelines in and around the California Public Records Act. So want to make sure that we are trying to balance both here, real fiscal challenges with ensuring public trust. And then, of course, improving access and ensuring security for your IT systems. Next slide. Utilities, infrastructure, and climate adaptation. So we have 9 platform statements in total, but talking about sea level rise, stormwater management, ensuring ratepayer equity, ensuring or enhancing local utilities. We really want to make sure that if there are wildfire events from IOUs, that reverse in condemnation or liability is not shifted to local governments or their ratepayers. And so that's something that I know that there was an attempt a couple of years ago to do this, and it's always sort of brimming at the surface when when we have a major event. Next slide. Fun stuff, administration and fiscal sustainability. But of course, you certainly want to make sure that we're continuously working with your state delegation on restoring a permanent solution for the VLF shortfall issue. We have been working quite a bit with Senators Becker and Assemblymember Pappen. Want to try to preserve contracting autonomy and local flexibility. Looking to stabilize our pension obligations and enhance services to benefit our residents. Next slide. Public safety and homelessness. Again, e-bike safety is one of those big issues. Assemblymember Pappen actually has a measure on e-bike safety that she's seeking support from her district on. Enhanced penalties for repeat retail crime, having collaborative responses to sort of wraparound services for your homeless community, investing in rapid rehousing and support services, and of course, community-oriented public safety. Next slide. And so, from a next steps perspective, really want to open it up to comments, feedback. The goal here is really to provide guidance to city staff and by extension, your consultants, Douglas and I, on things that you are interested in exploring, any questions as to where, maybe why we have a specific statement, and I may have to defer to some staff on that if folks are in the room, depending on some of the technical aspects. But really, the goal here was to provide you a snapshot of our process and want to open it up for discussion because the goal here is to get your feedback, incorporate that feedback into the platform, and then bring it back at a later date for formal adoption. And tying it back to the legislative timing, again, the legislative deadline for introducing new legislation is February 20th. Now, those bills do have to sit in print unamended for 30 days. So we do have some time here, but bills are, being introduced every day. And once a bill is introduced, that clock for that bill starts, right? So all the way from, January 6th, the first day of legislative session, we've seen bills sort of trickle in, and that's when the clock starts for those bills. And so it's a really good time that we're having this discussion. It's very timely for us to pull this together, and I'm looking forward to a robust conversation and how we can best support the city. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Rada. Anything else?
No, that's it. Thank you, Mayor.
Of course. At this time, I'd like to open the item for public comment. So, Mr. City Clerk, do you have any speakers for this item?
Yes, Mayor Lorraine, we've received a number of requests to speak on this item. If you're in the room and wish to speak on item number 1, the draft legislative platform for 2026, please provide me with a request to speak slip, or if you're in our virtual environment, please raise your hand now. Mayor Lorraine, that is 2 requests to speak, and that sets the timer at 3 minutes per speaker. We'll invite our first speaker to the podium, Robert Whitehair.
Mr. Mayor, members of the council, thank you for the opportunity to comment on the city's legislative, platform for the coming year. I very much appreciate it, as do all the people that I work with. We respectfully request that one of the city's legislative priorities, specifically utilities, infrastructure, and climate adaptation, be modified, and I'll explain why. I believe that including climate change issues under such a broad list of other and under the adaptation issues as you have, along with utilities and infrastructure, I don't think gives significant climate matters the attention and gravitas that climate issues deserve. This is of special concern given all that San Mateo has already done and continues to be a leader in response to the climate crisis. And also because the city has, at the request of advocates and the council members themselves, taken strong positions on behalf of the climate. Memorializing all of these in the form of legislative positions would be a great start of a platform for the future. Therefore, we request in the proposed legislative advocacy platform or policy that climate issues be removed from the utilities, infrastructure, and climate adaptation plank or category to be inserted into a new category. Climate response, thereby, and we would call it climate response, thereby creating for this new category the same importance as community development and housing, transportation, public works, and the rest of them. Other possibly new line items in the new climate response category could include the addition of the City of San Mateo's stated position on banks having investments in fossil fuels or taking a position on cap and invest, as it's now known, formerly known as cap and trade, as well as other issues such as fiscal responsibility of fossil fuel companies for damages to the environment. We hear through the grapevine that the legislature will be considering legislation to absolve oil companies of all responsibility for any damage they ever created, not just fire. I do note that the proposed line item opposed legislation that transfers wildfire-related costs from investor-owned utilities to cities, etc. I think that's a great place to start and respectfully request a position on the other items listed in this paragraph. I think doing this will make your lives easier in the coming year. And I paid attention to the presenter about nimble. That is absolutely true. At the end of the legislation last year, so many things came up at the last minute. And I want us to be nimble, and hopefully you can be too. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Our next and final speaker in this item will be Kevin Simpson.
Thank you, City Clerk and Honorable Mayor and Council. The reason I asked to speak on this topic, and you're going to hear from me again later today, so this is your first of 3 opportunities to get a load of all this, is that in the very first page of this document, it says that San Mateo strives to provide, and then the next word is safe. On the list of transportation priorities, Vision Zero and safety of our streets are 11 and 12 after rebuilding parking garages. You've heard from me and from others that we're concerned about how front of mind safety of our streets is, and this is a great example of it. There are 92 items on this list, and I agree with all of them. They're great things that we need to be aware of, and I know they have to be nimble in helping us respond when the fire hose of legislation opens up coming from Sacramento. But I really wish that we could do more in all of the things that we put in front of the public to be clear about what's the most important thing. Now, e-bikes are going to be the hot topic, but an e-bike didn't kill Sandra at Delaware and Peninsula, and an e-bike didn't kill Veronica on El Camino, and an e-bike didn't kill Aiden Fang, despite what people like to say about it, didn't kill Aiden Fang in Burlingame, and an e-bike didn't run over the 2 ladies on Humboldt Street on my blocks in the last 6 months. It's vehicle safety, it's transportation safety, it's infrastructure to make better street design, and it's not really coming through here that this is that important. We've become inured to it at all levels, at the legislature, at the governor's level, here in this chamber, and on out through the community. Every time somebody gets run over, somebody complains about pedestrians not paying attention, and somebody complains about e-bikes causing it somehow. And so far, that's not the case. The ground is changing under our feet. The average car costs $50,000 today. People can't afford them anymore. They need other mechanisms of transit. And unless we make the safety of everybody, pedestrians, bicyclists, people in cars, a priority, and very visibly a priority, and start designing and building for that, then we aren't going to get anywhere. And we're going to keep having Veronicas, and we're going to keep having Mark Kramers, and we're, God forbid, keep having Aiden Fangs. So I hope you will rethink how you say what's important to you, and maybe make safety of our streets and our communities a topic unto itself, and not just split up amongst transportation and all the other categories that you have here. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mayor Lorraine, that concludes public comment.
Okay, thank you. Well, I will close public comment. I appreciate those who gave some. And now I'll turn to my council colleagues and ask if any have any questions or comments or feedback. Councilmember Diaz-Nash.
Thank you very much, and through the mayor, thank you, Dane, for the presentation. There you are. I'll just be quick. I would support our public speaker's comment about breaking out climate as its own initiative. I will leave it to all of you to decide the name, but I think it needs to be comprehensive beyond adaptation and sea level rise, wildfire prevention, recovery, and everything else that comes together. There are many initiatives within here that might fit nicely in that, so I would endorse that. In general, wherever possible, I think we should go on record opposing new mandates without accompanying state reimbursement provisions. That's said a couple of different times, but I think that needs to be an underlying theme. I also support the second speaker's request to try and prioritize within each one of these categories. I don't know if that was done. It looked more like we were trying to pull it all together, but I think there's a lot of value in the statement, and I think safety is a very important thing, but in general, each one of the categories should be prioritized. Obviously, VLF is in here, but I would hope that it's not just looking to influence, but really find a permanent solution that gives us the money that we are due, and just be very clear about that. Under community development and housing, number 6, definitely very important. Community input and city oversight is critical to our housing development. And number 13, I'm wondering, is this sort of inspired by Assemblywoman Pappen, her bill last year and the one she's putting forward this year to try and promote accountability and transparency at HCD? I think we want to have a good communication with them whenever possible, but I would support that if that's where it came from. In terms of transportation, public works, generally, I guess regional initiatives like Grand Boulevard may not be originally just a state thing. It's starting with regional agencies, but I think anytime there's a regional transportation initiative, we need to make sure we have sufficient city input throughout the process, not just at the last minute, where we found ourselves a couple of times trying to make it work in the 13th hour. In terms of parks, recreation, community services, I would love to see more emphasis on seniors, because that's one of our major new emphases in our general plan and initiatives, and it's our fastest growing segment within San Mateo, so I'd like to see that reflected. And in terms of utilities, infrastructure, definitely number 4, small cell, and making sure that we continue to have approval and review that's critical to us, because as our staff knows, we spent 1.5 years trying to make that happen. So I think those are my comments very quickly.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor Nicole Fernandez.
So I would like to, Dane and Zach, thank you so much for the presentation. Really appreciate it. I know we're running limited on time, so I'm just going to speak as quickly as Councilmember Diaz-Nash. I'd like to echo Councilmember Diaz-Nash's comments that I do believe that bike ped safety and Vision Zero should be its own priority category where we can make it so, and that, like Mr. Whitehair said, climate should be its own priority category. I would also like to float human services and immigration as its own priority category as well. My district is 43% Latino. San Mateo is about 36% foreign born. ICE is on the ground every day kidnapping people. If we don't take positions on legislation that could harm some of the most vulnerable in our community, we aren't doing our jobs. So I'd really like to make that a priority as well. And also beyond the what we brought out, we are a housing friendly council, and I'm actually very proud of how housing friendly we are. And I want our legislative positions to reflect that. We're a council at the Champion Measure T. We prize our track record on housing development. And quite frankly, as a whole, this council is much more to the left of the League of California Cities. And so I don't want us to be lumped into any bill, opposing any bill, or prioritizing any bill just because the League of California Cities takes a position. And I say that as someone who is one of the leaders in our California Peninsula division. We run to the left of the League of California Cities. So I do not want CPPG adding us or taking a position on any housing bill that is not first reviewed by the Legislative Committee, Mayor Lorraine and myself. I'd propose that. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Newsom?
I had more comments, but you guys took them all. So I would just echo everyone's sentiment. I also would say that I believe that when this was drafted, there wasn't really a priority. It was more of just a list, but I am all for making sure that for each category we prioritize kind of top to bottom. I think that is key. And beyond that, thank you for all your comments. Thanks.
Councilmember Spirko-Goditsky?
Thank you. +1 to everyone's comments.
Thank you. Okay. Yeah, I did just want to confirm, Zachary and Dane, that we don't necessarily at this time with the current draft have a intended prioritization within the various categories and their numbers, or within the idea of having these categories be categories. Is that fair?
That's correct.
I am hearing a lot from my colleagues that they would like to change that. And because I think, I guess I agree. I think it's fine. And so I suppose I'll just echo that, I guess in my mind, the priorities, if they are shown in a different order, can convey a bit more. I guess I did want to ask though, what might that entail?
There we go. So basically these were all groupings of just areas of emphasis. Now, everything that you have on this list, these are all top priorities for this city. There's so many more other items that we could really focus on, but this is what is rising to the top, not only from your staff, but from all your policy initiatives that you have, all your master plans, what we hear from all of you and each of you. It all is risen to the top. Now, if we want to put more emphasis, let's put it to the top if that's what you want, but there's no difference in the prioritization. They're going to advocate regardless on your positions, and they're going to be steadfast in doing that advocacy and getting out there at the state level overall. So really prioritization, they're all top priorities. Does that kind of make sense?
I think it does for me. Yeah. I mean, I think what I'm hearing from my colleagues is that, and from public comment, is that maybe having a finer tuned separation of some of these will help the public potentially get a sense of elements of these broader categories that have something of an equal prioritization. But I see Dane has his hand up and would be happy to take a comment. Sorry? Yeah.
Thank you, Mayor. And I hear you loud and clear on the prioritization. I can say, for the record, we absolutely, there was no, I guess, deliberate thought as to how we numbered them. We actually just we assign numbers because in years past we've assigned just bullet points, and then folks just have to count down, and so we just assign numbers to make it easier for reference. But we certainly can take a stab at sort of rejiggering this as far as establishing it by priority. I will say what could be perhaps a different approach is we could modify the opening statement of Transportation and Public Works to really, in that narrative portion, to really strengthen we can work with a verbiage there versus trying to then figure out which ones, and we can also throw some of that stuff at the top as well. But on some of these where we want to make it clear, we can maybe re-emphasize it in the narrative section. And my team and city staff can take a stab at maybe punching up that language a bit to really kind of lead forward. That might be a viable path forward versus trying to then go through every section to figure out what takes priority as far as listing it on a numbers. When in reality, city managers correct that when something comes up, we're all over it, and we're going to be proactive as well on all these items.
Yeah, that sounds reasonable to me. And Councilmember Spiko-Goditsky would like to weigh in.
Thank you, through the mayor. I think what I'm hearing, though, is that from this council, transportation, public safety, climate, housing, any of those larger legislative topics, just really reemphasize and prioritize that and hear the priority from the five of us that those are critical for us as a city. Is that fair?
It's great to hear because those are our top 4 priorities as a city in our strategic plan. So there you go.
Yeah, and I do think plans like the strategic plan can offer, and as we review it annually, an opportunity for public input to give us a sense of which of these are higher priorities than others and so on. But I think for what we have, I think I just want to get a sense if people like the idea brought by Dane about maybe just taking in a little of what he heard tonight from us, from the public, and trying to add that a little bit to the narrative sections to make it a little clearer, sort of the broadest thrusts, and then maybe like have bullet points as opposed to numbers for the each of the priorities within the categories, but potentially increasing the number of categories. Any objections?
I think I would just say, I agree with Dane that having numbers, you can say, we're talking about number 14. It makes it a little difficult to sort of say, but I appreciate and I like the idea of really punching it up in the intro and being very clear.
That's a good point. Councilmember Newsom?
Perhaps moving to alphanumeric, so letters as opposed to numbers.
I like it. Okay. Did we have an action? Yes, Dane.
Oh, so I have one more comment. I just want to make sure that I'm crystal clear here on direction. And this is in response to Deputy Mayor Fernandez's comment with respect to housing policy. I just want to make sure that because this would be we'll come back and we'll tweak the policy section. Is there a specific aspect of housing policy and land use that you had in mind? I asked the question because as I'm sure you know, we see about 200 pieces of legislation that touches on land use. One of the trends that we are now seeing that I know that we will see, whether it be through an action through the budget, whether it be through individual pieces of legislation, are measures that strip away local government's ability to, for example, assess their own real estate transfer tax or document transfer fees, anything to do with impact fees, development fees, that is coming this year. And so we may see, with respect to legislative timing, it might be difficult to schedule a subcommittee. So I want to be clear. As far as when you say all housing, are you assuming that as well, or is it more on the planning side, like the upzoning side, TOD? If I could just get a little bit more specificity.
Absolutely. So let me just tell you a little bit about my thinking here. So basically anything that might have to touch on development, local control, or high profile, like an SB 63 or an SB 79, that should be things of that elevation should be reviewed by Mayor Lorraine and myself as a legislative subcommittee.
Through the mayor. So will you be reporting back to the rest of the council, though, if there's a decision that needs to be made?
Well, typically the subcommittee has made the decision about whether the council supports a piece of legislation or not.
I think if I recall, there might be a recommendation made by the committee that comes back to council.
So what'll happen is basically we'll go through, so going through this cycle, this legislative session, Dane will go ahead and he'll go through and look at all the pertinent legislation that can impact us as a city. We'll go ahead and we'll meet with the legislative committee, go through all those. The legislative committee will tell us, what is your recommendation? What do you want to put forward? That ultimately will come here to the council, typically on a consent item, but you could always pull it up and have any discussion that you want on whatever the city's position is as a full council before getting overall direction.
Works for me.
And then just real quickly, I just want to go on the League of Cities. So do you want us to just at least, when you're saying like hold back, because the league can, yes, we could go against the grain with the league, just overall. At least specifically on those, do you want us to bring back to the Ledge Committee specifically?
I have no issues of us going against the grain for the League of Cities, quite frankly. They're too conservative for my liking. But that said, I'm happy if you guys bring it back for us to consider this.
Got it. And then the one other item I just want to get clarification on. Right now, we don't have anything on immigration policies here in this document, in the Ledge platform. What were you thinking about just overall, broadly, so that can hear from the rest of the council real quick?
Broad strokes about anything that is a welcoming city designation or any additional state benefits that might come with that. Whether ICE can utilize city occupied, whether we still get to make the decision about whether ICE can use city land, like other cities have stopped them from doing, so things of that nature.
So just any kind of umbrella of immigration overall.
Yep.
Do I see nodding heads from the council for us to put something together for the Ledge Committee to review?
Well, don't we already have an ordinance that we're a welcoming
We
city?
do. We already have that. So do you want to utilize that and maybe put language from that ordinance in? Does that work? Weave that in?
Yes.
I'm seeing yes, yes, yes. Okay, I see a majority here to weave something in.
To be clear, like there's a resolution that was
Yeah,
passed
resolution.
in early 2017, establishing general principles along those lines. So what I'm hearing is to incorporate the language, some of the principles in that resolution into this document.
I see
Correct.
thumbs. I see, yeah, five thumbs up. So that's what we'll do. And then we'll bring that back. So the next step, Mayor, leave it up to you. And
I
can
was
tell you
just
what
going to
the
ask
next step is.
that really. I was curious whether this would be considered consent or otherwise.
So the next step would be is we'll go ahead and we'll take this feedback. We'll make the edits. We'll redline actually, Dane. I think we'll redline the edits. We'll have it on. We'll have a redline version. We'll have a clean version on consent for adoption at a future meeting.
Thank you. Okay.
We have the direction that we need. Thank you.
I appreciate the presentation of the item, and at this time, I believe we are ready to adjourn the special meeting, and then we'll take 10 minutes to prepare ourselves for the regular meeting. Thank you for your patience.
Thank you.